Hello and welcome to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. Today our guest is Patrick Sibly, who is a secondary and tertiary teacher. He's also studied agriculture, he's done a degree in science, and he's also done his master's in bioethics. Welcome to the program, Patrick.
Thanks, Mirella.
Thank you for coming to the program.
Thanks, Mirella.
Now today you wanted to talk a little bit about something you said last week that you didn't finish saying about the role of fathers in families. You wanted to talk about that in the last episode.
I wanted to talk about the importance of educating adolescents and young men to be responsible fathers, to take responsibility for their actions, to ask the questions before they act, particularly when they're acting sexually. Are they ready to raise a family? Are they ready to take responsibility, provide, care for and nurture not just their partner or their wife or spouse, but their children? Tenderness, gentleness, compassion, service, giving themselves the gift. And I think this is what children need to develop healthily, in a healthy way. It's a way of building respectful relationships within the family, which is the building block of society. These are the traditional values, and the place that tradition has held is a place for the first education of children. With the mother and father. Of course, there's many people that have not had that privilege, and I understand that is a very difficult place to come from, particularly I've seen it in the children that I've worked with, and they need to be given all the support that they can. And I just wanted to say that I'm trying to think, is it a Dr. Seuss book where they bring in the cat to get rid of the mouse, and then they bring in a dog to get rid of the cat? And I think if we've got a few things wrong in the foundations of our current social structure, bringing in another solution to fix the mess that's just as bad as or worse than what the solution that was brought in before is not going to fix anything. We need to, I think, get back to basics and what does make for the safe and respectful development of children.
Okay, and what are those basics, you think?
I believe the basics are stable, committed, lifelong love relationships between a man and a woman. And that's not to say that two women can't love each other or two men can't love each other. But what it is saying is that children, just ask the adoptees, even the ones that have been adopted by gay couples will say, yeah, they were fantastic, but they weren't a mother and a father. The IVF generation, I want to know who my father was. How dare you have manufactured me without me knowing my father? There is something deep in the human spirit that likes to know its origins. That's just asking those who have spoken of their own experience.
Okay, and also today you want to discuss also the marriage debate. What did you want to talk about that?
I want to talk about that. I believe, and I have good reason to believe, that the marriage debate hasn't really happened. And the way that the media has presented it has been, in a way, by the withholding of facts and information being a sort of a false debate. A misrepresentation of what's at stake, a misrepresentation of the real issues of concern, a misrepresentation of what marriage is under the state law, and also a misrepresentation of what will follow after if marriage law is changed.
Okay, and what is the marriage law that you were talking about?
Well, as far as I understand, in law, marriage has three elements. So the first one was that it was permanent. The second one, that it would be complementary between a man and a woman. And the third main element was that it's monogamous between just two people in a marriage. The first one was done away with in 1975 when introduced into Australian law was no-fault divorce. and which means up until that time it was difficult to get a divorce. You had to have a very good reason. No-fault divorce led to a 500% increase in divorce. So we had a 10% divorce rate, now I've got a 50% divorce rate.
We got the divorce rate higher because of the no-fault divorce.
Yeah. As far as I understand, prior to 1975, it was far more difficult to get a divorce. Introduction of no-fault divorce, and now it's very simple to get a divorce. I don't love them anymore. I've changed my mind. And it's an indication of why we had those, why that was in law. That permanency wasn't necessarily about people's feelings. It was also about the other people involved, namely the children. In state law, it's understood that the parents get together in their contract, when they go to sign the papers, the civil ceremony, for example, the signing of the papers is to say, we're going to raise children as civil citizens. We're going to take responsibility for this union and also any children that are produced in this union, that we have a responsibility to the rest of the society. Marriage was never a private event. It wasn't to do with feelings. Marriage was the state saying, you guys have a responsibility. We're going to hold you accountable for your commitment in the public sphere. How you raise and educate your children is important to this country.
Jeez, it was a lot stricter in the old days. Yeah.
Yeah, based really finding its foundation in Judeo-Christian tradition, which our laws and our customs generally derive from. The Greek philosophical sort of reason tradition. We've got our Westminster system of government and our Harvard system of law, and all based on Greek philosophical tradition and Judeo-Christian sort of morality. In the Christian understanding of marriage, you would have the elements would be that it was free, total and faithful, but just on a simple, basic social legal framework, that it would be monogamous between just one couple, two people as a couple, and the other one complementary between a man and a woman.
Okay. All right, we've just got to go to a break now. You're watching Nat Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly. Hello and welcome back to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're here with Patrick Sibly, who is a secondary and tertiary educator, teacher, and he's also studied applied science in agriculture, and he's done his master's in bioethics. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks very much, Mirella.
Now, we were talking about marriage. You were talking about different types of different things that we used to have, like before. Would you like to tell us what you were going to talk about permanency, and then you said there was something else, some issues on marriage. Complementarity. So
that's a fancy word to say that in our law at the moment we have say that marriage is between a man and a woman.
Yeah, that was the permanency, first one.
The permanency was that it'd be full-time. That's full-time. For the rest of your life.
Permanent, yeah.
And the last one is to do with monogamy being one man and one woman, just two people.
Yeah.
No more in the marriage.
Yeah.
Not polygamy, monogamy.
No, yeah.
Mono meaning one.
And that's still the law now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one down, 1975, the permanency gone. So there's two left. The people talking in the public sphere now about changing it, the marriage law to include same-sex relationships, and the media is helping with this. They're presenting the argument as if this is about feelings. People have feelings, they love each other, therefore we should call it marriage. Interestingly, we have statements from people in the gay community in the last 10 years saying, we've got civil unions, we've got superannuation rights, we've got every single thing that we could want under law that we wanted in the first place. And so they were asked the question, why then do you want to change the definition of marriage? And this spokesperson said, we've got practically nothing to gain, we just want to prove a point. Now, that reminds me of what happened in the United States, is that in 19 states, the vote was put to the people. In 19 states, the people voted, despite the opinion polls, they voted against changing the laws. They voted to retain the traditional definition of marriage. In 19 states, the High Court intervened and overturned the people's popular vote. Now, the courts can't do that here, but the Parliament has the power here to change the law, and the courts won't be able to interfere. However, for some reason, our members of the ALP and the Greens at the moment don't want to go to a plebiscite. I think the reason is because they're overrepresented in the Parliament, and if we do go to a plebiscite, they'll be shown up. They'll be exposed.
Okay.
And I think the media's helping by perpetuating this debate as if it's all about feelings. That marriage was never about feelings. And one of the things that's very important with marriage is it's about the children. It's about what will come out of a relationship and how you get children into the relationship. And there's a term in law that talks about the state being the parent of last resort. So when all else breaks down, when all else fails, when the next of kin can't look after a child, when worst case scenario, disaster, you put that child under the care of somebody who is not its biological parents. The IVF generation, those who adopted, they've been speaking in the last 20 years about how they wanted to know who their father was and expressing anger in the public about being, it wasn't a last resort, they were removed from their biological parents. It was done deliberately, almost as an experiment. One of the first role of an ethicist is to say, just because we can do it, doesn't mean we should do it. And to talk about marriage, same-sex unions, if you want to apply children to those relationships, you do need to create or manufacture children and then bring them into that relationship. I question, from the child's point of view, I question that, whether that's the most respectful and loving thing to be doing for a child. Based on the testimonies of children who have been brought up in those relationships. One girl who was raised by two lesbian mothers said they were great. They were fantastic. They loved me, they gave me everything they could, but they weren't my father. I want to know who my father is. There's something, they tell us, deep in the human spirit that wants to know our origins. Who am I? And where do I come from? And it appears that you can't run away from that.
Beautiful. And so what sort of advice could you give on this topic? What would you like? How would you like to see things change, or how would you like to help people who are considering this, or give some sort of positive angle on it?
Well, there's a couple of things that need to be... The public needs to know what they're voting about or what they're talking about first, that it's not about feelings. They also need to know, this is something I believe is true, is that a majority of the population does not want a change in the definition of marriage. I've seen it, I've asked, I've spoken to people, I've had responses from other people. I think the media is misrepresenting the public opinion. I believe that nearly 2/3 of Australians do not want a change in the definition of marriage, yet there's propaganda in the media, and it's also being supported by the Greens and ALP politicians. But there's even more to this debate, is that if people think that once they've got rid of complementarity, the man and the woman, that's going to be it, they are very mistaken, because there's a whole movement to, as soon as that's gone, to also get rid of the monogamy, the one man, one woman, or two people in a marriage. For the last 12 years, that has been, at least from what I've seen, that's been in discussion. So people are already pushing to get rid of the two people in a marriage and pushing for 3 people marriages. I've got a quote here from the leader of the Greens in the UK, And she had this to say: the Greens Party in the UK is open to the idea of three-person marriages, Natalie Bennett has said. Miss Bennett said she was open to further conversation and consultation, unquote, about the prospect of state recognising polyamorous, so more people in a love relationship. She made the comments in conversation with Pink News, the LGBT website. So the public needs to know that this is not just about recognising people's love for each other. David Blaskerville made it.
So we have to go to a break, but you can talk on this when we get back. Sorry. You're watching Nat Chat. Stay with us. We'll be back with more very shortly. Hello and welcome back to Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich. If you've just joined us, we're with Patrick Sibly, who's done his Masters in Bioethics, and we're discussing quite a lot of interesting things. Welcome back to the program, Patrick.
Thanks, Mirella.
So before we went to the break, you were talking about David Blaskerville and what's going to happen in the future.
Blaskerville,
is that
actually,
right?
David Blaskerville was just someone I was quoting who said a few years back, don't blame the gay lobby for messing up marriage. The reason I said that is because we're talking about the marriage debate has been presented by the media as one all about feelings, but that's because the heterosexual population had already reduced love relationship to feelings, nothing about commitment, nothing about responsibility, and it's bred right into our adolescence with the safe sex message. It's just all about doing whatever you feel like, and marriage has been sort of gradually broken down, no fault divorce, and this is just one more thing in the chain of events is that, yeah, sure, if other people treat commitment relationships as passing, as, yeah, I love you for as long as I feel like it, and it's all about how I feel, and of course, people who experience same-sex attraction, why should they not go by the same standards? So this is certainly not anyone saying your feelings don't matter if you happen to be someone with same-sex attraction. This is about saying, hang on, it's not your fault, but we need to go a whole step back further and say marriage is not about feelings. Sure, it's part of it, but in the law, there's nothing to do with feelings. Kathy Roos, American lawyer, was saying this would be the first time in history where we start legislating for people's feelings. She's saying feelings is none of people's business. It's not the state's interest. The state's interest is for marriages about a well-ordered society and the status of children. But my point, where I was getting to, was if the public needs to know that the lobby that's pushing for same-sex marriage they are not stopping there. I just had the example of them pushing for polygamous relationships, and that's been in conversation for 12, 15 years, probably longer. I've got another quote here by in David Van Gen's book, Stealing from a Child. He's quoting a lady by the name of Vera Bergelsen who is promoting in her book incest, that be recognised by the state as well. Her book titled Vice is Nice, but Incest is Best.
What?
The Problem of Moral Taboo. So first of all, she lays some very terrible foundations for her argument, saying that the reason behind people's sort of opposition to this was they felt repulsed and disgusted. Well, actually, no, that wasn't the reason behind our laws and customs. Our laws and customs are based on Greek philosophical tradition and Judeo-Christian law, the Ten Commandments, basically. That's what our whole society runs on. Yeah. That's the order that we have in our Western democratic society. And if we start throwing these things away, there's a steam train behind this argument. If we let this pillar fall, this marriage between a man and a woman, it's a deck of cards, a domino effect. There's just one thing after the other lined up hidden behind this agenda. It's enormous. Joseph Cardinal Ratzinger, who became Pope Benedict XVI, a man who was raised in Nazi Germany, was well aware of how totalitarian regimes get up and running. And he said, it's very obvious how they work. He studied the Nazis, he studied the communists in Russia. They create disorganisation, destabilise a society, and then they come in to rescue as the rescuers. So the rescue mission here is, we'll just change. We've messed up family, no-fault divorce, children that haven't been raised by their parents because their fathers predominantly are not around, irresponsible men. And then to fix all this, we'll fix it by changing the law and saying that it's all right to have anyone getting married, and we'll create children for those relationships. Ratzinger went on to say, if we make these changes, he didn't say it'll be problematic, he said there'll be very grave consequences, very grave. And he was talking about changing the fundamental relationships in our society. This is not just about a few people loving each other and giving them a marriage certificate. Fundamental relationships, very grave consequences. I just thought of something about what marriage really is, something very beautiful that I read a few weeks back, which was in a sermon by a German, a guy that was martyred, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And in a sermon for a married couple, he said to this young couple, "Today you are young and very much in love, and you think that your love can sustain your marriage. It can't. But your marriage can sustain your love." Now, what he was talking about was, in the traditional understanding of marriage, God is invited into a relationship. Now, this forms a little bit the basis of our laws in Western society on marriage. So it's not just about over-romanticising your feelings and love, as if you two can keep each other, you're going to have great feelings for the rest of your marriage. No, it's about needing God's bit of strength from God. And our laws reflect that at the moment. The reason before I said that the left was overrepresented is because I see the amount of money spent, factions particularly within the Labor Party, to support into Parliament people who share certain political views, which don't necessarily serve the good of a society. And I think it would be good to go to a plebiscite or to hear what the people really think about marriage when they understand the debate which is at hand.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program. It's been wonderful to have you here, Patrick.
Thanks very much, Mirella.
You've been watching Nat Chat. I'm Mirella Rich and our guest was Patrick Sibly. Hope you enjoyed the program. See you again soon.